So skulls. You have one. I hope no one here has two. In D&D, these seemingly worthless chunks of bones actually have a handful of functions once combined with magic and bits and bobs of lore. I'm gonna have to pick that up later. So let's break down some of the fun functions that skulls can serve for us. The first one I thought of was Speak with Dead. Now you might say that the only requirement of Speak with Dead is a corpse, not necessarily a skull, but the way that the spell reads makes me think that a mouth is required, which does mean we need a skull. Though you could also argue it needs tongue and lungs too. Another fun one is Skeletons and Zombies, which can be debated on how much the skull's actually necessary once again, but I believe the skulls would act as a kind of housing agent for the magic that animates them. I imagine there's like a glowing neuro network of magic something in there. This would essentially act as the brain and would contain the very exact instructions for how to do all the little things that we can just kind of do intuitively. And since we're on the topic of undead, I figured I should skip to the top of the line. That would be a lich. While default liches don't need one of their skulls, there is an incredibly rare Demilich, which involves the use of soul gems or something acting as eyes within the lich's soul while the consciousness is in the astral plane or something. As a result, skulls necessary because that's where we put the soul gems. Oddly, in 5e they have 80 hit points, which despite being a CR 18 monsters, I'm pretty sure could be taken down by a level 10 party with a half-decent and interesting plan. Now, for some non-necromantic uses, if scalp part of the skull turned into a bowl, this is particularly useful for skulls for larger monsters, because then I can just have a big pot going on. I imagine hags use this a lot. You could get a dragon skull pot, and there's just a cauldron that's built out of it. Could be a lot of fun. Another fun one is the spell Catapult. This technically works with any object, but come on. Imagine how much it would suck to be a giant. Some dude just shoots a goblin skull at your eye. That'd be funny. A fun honorable mention I came by was the Mexican decorated skulls thingies. This isn't a fantasy thing, so it doesn't really count, but I felt it couldn't be cut just because it's interesting. Also, my understanding of the cultural context of that comes from a high school Spanish class, so I better keep it moving before my ignorance shows. A historical use I always found neat was as a warning. You can stick a skull on a pike, and it's a pretty good way of marking territory. This also happened in a book I read a while back, The Heart of Darkness. I generally have monsters do that, particularly if they're kind of territorial, like they're not interfering with the human settlements. They're putting up the skulls in order to discourage humans from going into their area. Just kind of a leave me alone marking. And finally, my personal favorite cast is Magic Mouth. This skull will speak words for you when a condition that you choose is met. Great for messages. You can even mail it or combine it with the aforementioned pikes to make what's up super clear. So you can just wander into the wilderness, and as a dungeon master, you find one of these skull pikes, and it can say, riddle me this, blah, 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 there's a dragon over there. Quite fun. Thank you for your time. See you next week. Watch whatever that thing I'm pointing at is.